Right now, something is happening inside your skull that no one on Earth can fully explain. You are aware. You know you exist. You can feel the weight of your own thoughts pressing against the inside of your mind like something trying to get out. Scientists can tell you how your heart pumps blood. They can tell you how your lungs pull oxygen from the air. They can trace the electrical signals that fire between your neurons at 300 kilometers per hour. But not one of them can tell you why any of that feels like something. That question, why does experience exist at all, is so difficult, so resistant to every tool science has ever built, that philosopher David Chalmers gave it a name in 1995. He called it the hard problem of consciousness. Not a hard problem, the hard problem, capital letters. A problem so fundamental it sits in a category entirely by itself. And the strangest part, the harder science looks for an answer, the more it starts to seem like consciousness doesn't fit. Not just that we haven't explained it yet, that it may not belong to the story of evolution at all. Your brain is the most complex object ever discovered in the known universe. 100 billion neurons, 100 trillion connections, a machine so intricate that if you try to map every connection at the level of a single synapse, the data would fill the entire internet several times over. Evolution is very good at building complex machines. Eyes, immune systems, hands with opposable thumbs. The mechanisms of flight, of echolocation, of color vision so precise that the mantis shrimp can perceive 16 types of color receptors compared to your 3. But here is what evolution has never been able to explain. Why does seeing feel like anything? Why does the color red not just trigger a signal, but produce an experience, warm, vivid, unmistakably itself, that no description in words can fully capture? Neuroscientist Christoph Koch spent decades working alongside DNA co-discoverer Francis Crick trying to find the neural correlates of consciousness, the specific brain activity that produces awareness. They found correlates, patterns, signatures in the brain that appear when conscious experience is happening. But a correlation is not an explanation. Knowing which neurons fire when you see red does not tell you why seeing red feels like anything at all. Koch himself admitted in later years that the problem kept getting stranger the closer he looked. Because here is what no one expected. The closer science looks at the brain, the more it finds that consciousness seems to be doing something that natural selection has no obvious reason to produce. Evolution is ruthless. It keeps what works and discards what doesn't. Every feature of your body exists because it helped your ancestors survive long enough to reproduce. So what survival advantage does the inner experience of pain give you over a system that simply detects tissue damage and triggers withdrawal? What does the felt experience of fear add that a pure threat detection algorithm couldn't accomplish more efficiently? Philosopher Daniel Dennett spent his career arguing that consciousness is an illusion, that the felt quality of experience is just the brain's story about itself, not a real separate thing. But even that answer leaves a question behind. Why does the illusion feel like something? Why is there a story at all? This is the crack in the floor of everything. And some of the most serious thinkers in physics and philosophy have started to wonder whether consciousness might not be something the brain produces at all. Whether it might be something the brain receives. Panpsychism is not a new idea. It is one of the oldest ideas in recorded human thought. The ancient Greeks debated it. Spinoza entertained it. William James, the father of American psychology, spent years exploring it at the turn of the 20th century. The idea, simply put, is this. Consciousness is not something that emerges from complex matter. Consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality itself, present, in some form, at every level of the universe. Not that rocks think, not that electrons dream, but that the capacity for experience, for something it is like to be, is woven into the fabric of the universe the same way mass and charge are woven into it. And if that sounds like philosophy rather than physics, consider this. In 2014, mathematician and neuroscientist Giulio Tononi published a formal mathematical theory called Integrated Information Theory, IIT, which attempts to quantify consciousness as a measurable property of any system. Not just brains. Any system with the right kind of integrated information. Under IIT, consciousness is not exclusive to biology. It is a feature of structure, of information, and it exists, in varying degrees, wherever information is integrated in the right way. The implications are enormous, and they are not fringe. Roger Penrose, one of the greatest mathematical physicists alive, co-developed a theory with anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff called Orchestrated Objective Reduction, Orch-OR. Their proposal is that consciousness arises not from neural computation but from quantum processes inside structures called microtubules in your neurons. Quantum processes, the same layer of reality where particles exist in multiple states at once. Where the act of observation changes what is observed. Where the rules that govern everything visible break down into something that looks, to most physicists, like it shouldn't work at all. Penrose and Chalmers are not suggesting consciousness is magical. They are suggesting it is physical, but physical at a level so deep that the brain may not be creating it so much as tuning into it. Think about that word, tuning. A radio does not create music. It receives it. The music exists in the environment as a signal. The radio is built to translate that signal into something you can hear. What if your brain is not a generator of consciousness but an antenna for it? What if awareness, the raw fact of experience, is a property of the universe itself, and biological nervous systems evolved not to produce consciousness from scratch but to access something that was already there? This reframe changes everything about what you are. Because if consciousness predates biology, it predates Earth. It predates the formation of this solar system 4.5 billion years ago. It predates the molecular cloud that collapsed into our sun. It has been here, in some form, since the beginning. And the universe has been here for 13.8 billion years. Your brain, by comparison, is an extraordinarily recent development. Homo sapiens has existed for roughly 300,000 years. The genus Homo for about 3 million. Even the earliest nervous systems, the first networks of neurons in early animals, are less than 600 million years old. If consciousness is fundamental to the universe, then for the vast majority of the universe's history, experience existed without a brain to hold it. The question is not where consciousness came from. The question is what it was doing before it found you. This is not a comfortable thought. It is not supposed to be. Because it suggests that what you feel right now, this sense of being present, of looking out at the world from behind your eyes, is not a local accident. Not a byproduct of neurons firing in a particular pattern inside a 3-pound organ wrapped in bone. It suggests that you are a temporary shape that the universe is using to experience itself. Physicist and cosmologist Carl Sagan said it simply. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. He meant it poetically, but the science being built right now suggests he may have meant it literally. The ancient traditions knew something was off about the standard story. Virtually every major philosophical and spiritual tradition in human history has maintained that consciousness is primary, that the material world arises from or within awareness rather than the other way around. Hindu philosophy called it Brahman. Buddhist philosophy called it Rigpa. Plato called it the form of the good. They disagreed on almost everything else. They agreed on this. Modern neuroscience built its entire framework on the opposite assumption. That the brain produces mind. That consciousness is what complex matter does when it gets complicated enough. But the hard problem has never been solved. In 30 years of serious scientific attention, it has not gotten easier. It has gotten harder, and that might mean something. Not that the science is wrong. The neuroscience of how the brain processes information is extraordinary and real. But processing information and experiencing information may be two entirely different things. One explainable by evolution, one explainable only by something older. Right now, something is happening inside your skull that no one on Earth can fully explain. You already knew that. You felt it before the first sentence ended. The difference is that now you know you might not be the only place in the universe where something like that is happening. You might just be the latest place it arrived.